Welcome back to Slothcast. This is our series BYOB, Bring Your Own Beverage. We're going to talk about a movie tonight. It is the 1981 film Cutter's Way. I am your host, the Slothman, and with me, as always, is the Sloth-in-Chief, Trevor Beveridge. Trevor, how are you this evening?
I'm feeling pretty relaxed and robust. Enjoying the evening.
Okay, good to hear it. With us tonight, honorable guest, Brendan from the Ellroy Boys, also the creator of the Isolation Chamber podcast. Brendan, how are you tonight?
I'm doing very well. I'm really happy to be here. This is exciting stuff.
Thank you so much.
Groundbreaking.
Yeah. Well, I only do groundbreaking stuff. So
Yeah, that's the way to be.
yeah, I brought my own beverage, which is some Circle K gas station coffee.
Is it vanilla bean or what'd you get?
It's just their house blend.
Is it good?
It's not bad. Okay. I have a fondness for gas station coffee. I like it a lot.
Interesting.
I don't know. It just kind of I have positive associations.
Road trips,
fueling up on the road. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've done a lot of long distance driving in my day.
Really?
Yeah. Well, so it started when I was in college. I went to the University of Wisconsin in Madison, but I grew up and my family's home was in Lincoln, Nebraska. And so I spent a lot of time driving back and forth between Madison and Lincoln. And I got such a taste for the open road that when I graduated college, I did a lot. I drove around the country for 3 months, just kind of, and then, and I've moved a lot and driven a lot of places since then. So seeing this great country.
You ever circle back to certain areas, certain places stick out in your mind?
Well, a place I keep coming back to is Portland, Oregon, which I just came back from there, and I seem to keep returning there. I've lived there on a couple of occasions, and I had a longtime girlfriend who was born and raised there, and now new friends are there, and so I keep ending up there somehow.
I never been. Trevor, did you live there? Did you go to college there?
I went to college in Ashland, Oregon, Southern Oregon, but a lot of the my fellow students were from Portland, and that's where we go to see shows and experience a taste of city life. So I've been there quite a few times, and I have a lot of fond memories.
I've been to Ashland, actually.
Oh, fabulous!
Yeah. It's turning out to be a pretty popular spot for like retirees from California and places like that.
Yeah, to get that Oregon tax break, the theater festival. At our school, we actually had an elder hostel, which was like a dorm for old people.
Wow. Did you go to Southern Oregon?
I did, yes.
Were you a theater major?
No, kind of a wasted opportunity. I saw plays at the festival every summer, but I'm an English major.
Gotcha. Yeah, I never saw any plays there, but it seems like it would be a fun time.
Oh yeah, it's a cool little town, laid back, a lot of kooks, hippie kooks.
Sure.
But generally good people, walkable, good, really good park, a lot of arts and culture for a town of its size. Recommended.
Nice.
I thought you said a lot of coos. My ears went up.
Coos?
Coos.
What's
coos?
A coup?
You don't know what coos is? Coos.
Trim.
Oh! I thought you meant like a military coup.
No.
A lot of a lot of uprisings.
Yeah, that's
a lot of
yeah, exactly.
A lot of
yeah.
So all right, where are we at? Oh wait, so you guys, both of you guys have MFAs, right?
I have an
No.
MA. Mine's an M. I have an MA in
Oh, you have an
museum
MA.
studies. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah,
So-
MA too. MA. Yeah.
All right. So you guys are the big brains in the house tonight.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Well, that's good. I'm going to just follow. I'm going to
All
follow.
right. Yeah, I'll bring my education to bear on this occasion.
So we've got, yeah. So tonight, so, okay. Well, Trevor, what are you drinking? Let's cover
Jim
the
Beam White
beverage.
Label.
Yeah. What's
Same
that
as
size?
Cutter. 200 mini
Jim Beam.
hip flask size.
I've got the 375. Is that a pint?
Yes, it would be considered a half pint.
I think he's okay. So yeah, I'm doing that. I'm not getting too rocked like we did with Hans last time, but I'm just sipping it because I
Oh,
want to be central.
control.
Yeah. So we got the 1981 film Cutter's Way, directed by Ivan Passer, who's a Czech filmmaker. And Brandon, when was the first time? How did you get introduced to this movie?
Well, I don't exactly know. The first time I saw it was last year. I got it on DVD from like the Goodwill because I'd read about it on the internet, and there's this guy who is like he's like a he's like a subversive right wing, he's like Nazi adjacent guy named Tai E, who had a bunch of guest spots on the Perfume Nationalist before becoming kind of persona non grata with them. Just I think but he has these like very unusual, unique reviews of movies, and he picks out movies that you'd never think this guy would be into. And Cutter's Way was one that he had reviewed, and so that's how I think I'd heard of it, because I'd never heard, and I have an undergraduate in film studies and have been an off and on kind of cinephile nerd. You can't see them all, you can't, there's an expectation, I think, sometimes, like, oh, if you're into, somebody brings up something you haven't heard of it, it's like he's not the real deal. I had never heard of it.
Right.
And I was surprised because in many ways, I watch it, I think this is the last gasp of like the new Hollywood cinema, of like the 70s. It's got kind of that 70s new Hollywood vibe, Jeff Bridges, and it's about, it's got some of those themes, I think, but it does it in it's less. It's a very, I think it's like a very it's a tight movie, and a very very pretty movie, and John Hurd, who I only knew as the Home Alone dad, and the guy and the Vic Makazian from The Sopranos. I was shocked to see him in this role, and he disappears in it pretty much, and he's really, really good. And so when I saw it last year, I was like, yeah, this one is one to see for sure.
Did you read the book?
I have not read the book.
I think you would like the book. I started reading it this week. I thought I could get through it in a week, but I that was being very generous with myself. But
I see.
but I got about a little more than a quarter of the way, maybe like almost 100 pages in. I'm looking for the author now. I forget the author's name, but you can only get it like on, you could pay $40 for the paperback or $30 for the hardback. It's one of those weird things, but you can get it on Kindle for $6.
Gotcha.
I remember
Newton
it was
Thornburg.
unmistakably, an author's name. Yeah.
Yeah. What's his name? I'm trying to
Newton Thornburg.
There you go. Yeah. That's a good author name.
Yeah.
Yeah, you couldn't be anything else.
Because of the Ellroy Boys, and the aesthetic that you guys, I think you would enjoy the book, and it goes much more into detail with Bone, of course, right? Because it's the book, but it has a more of a, it's almost based in the beginning. It's pretty based, and then it gets but it's much more sort of a little heavier on the noir themes, I guess you could say. more about the detective work that's going on and the backstory of Santa Barbara, where the movie takes place.
Yeah, and that's a thing that I like about the movie, just from the get-go, was the setting being in Santa Barbara. So many movies, they just take place in Los Angeles or New York, and this movie's like very much, I wonder how much more you would get out of it if you knew something about, I've been to Santa Barbara, but I don't really know anything about it. But there's a hint in the movie that there's something to the location, that it's like, they have that parade, that's basically, I guess, what is that about the founding of the city by like as a mission, and so it's kind of founded on, exploitation or something like that. It seems to be kind of a suggested by, and this guy, Cutter, he seems to perceive like the he has this like cynical perception of basically like the corruption that is at the very core of not just of the town, but of humanity, and so this city seems to be like exemplify that in some way.
Yeah, because when this is written, where this takes place, like you said, it has that new Hollywood feel, because the actual subject matter is all about the cynicism from the 60s kind of left over. And that
Yeah.
Santa Barbara at that time was this kind of like shitty area where you could just live cheap, but all the conglomerates are moving in. What's his name? JJ, the main villain guy, JJ
Cord is,
Yeah.
Cord.
So he represents kind of all of that evil kind of coming in, that corporate evil, taking over, pushing people out of their homes. And Cutter was a rich kid, a well-to-do kid, before he went to Nam.
I see.
And so, yeah, that's why he's really good friends with Georgie, because Georgie's well-to-do, and Georgie's always saying, I owe it to Cutter in a lot of ways. His mom looked after me and all this stuff. So he was part of that life, and then he kind of spiraled out and then became a hippie and then went to Nam, and then he gets blown to shit, and then and so he ends up how he ends up. But Trevor, what did you think about the movie? Because you never seen this, right?
No, this was my first time watching it. One of my favorite things also is that it's set in Santa Barbara. I feel like a lot of places well, I guess Santa Barbara is where the Central Coast starts, but southern half of California get left out of the game because LA is such a popular film setting and story setting for novels and stuff. And I think what you guys were saying about the way Santa Barbara changed from the 60s to the 60s on has become more stark. It's actually one of the most expensive places to live in California.
Yeah.
Especially for not being a city. It's where a lot of people from LA go to escape and live somewhere nice and play tennis, it seems. And it's really cool to have a movie that kind of exposes that.
Yeah, in this they make it, the feel is, it's a more conservative community and out of the, and out of the way, a small town. I guess I wouldn't say, it probably still kind of feels like a small town, but the people who inhabit it are not the people who inhabited it when this movie was made.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. They're all they're kind of like losers, like just Bone and Cutter and Mo and they're on all their, but they're all just kind of a bunch of, they're literally losers. They've got nothing. Jeff Bridge, Bone sleeps next to the Davenport or on the Davenport or whatever, and the house is falling apart, and it's right down the street from where like Cutter, in the book, where it's like Cutter grew up down the street, so he always kind of passes by his house, and he sees the house that he grew up in, and it's being taken over by this like rich family.
Yeah, and the cities continue to change. I think it's become so expensive that the only reason I can imagine trying to live there if you weren't super rich is to go to college. There's a UC there, but even that is kind of outside of the city in like a student ghetto.
Isla Vista.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's this like, it's just like Isla Vista is like this crazy party town that basically all the UC Santa Barbara students live. I spent a night in Isla Vista once when I was on a road trip that I was telling you about, that I had an ex-girlfriend whose brother lived in was like, he was gonna be he was taking community college classes, and he lived in an absolute dump with like 8 cats, and the place was just like covered in cat shit and stuff. And he was like, hey man, like, I didn't know, I stayed with him because I knew I was used to go out with his sister. And I get there and they're like, yeah, we're gonna go over to our friend's house and watch South Park and then play Xbox. Do you want to come with? And I had literally nothing else to do. And being a good guest, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll come along. And I just followed them there, walked there. And I get there, and at the time I wasn't really smoking weed at all. I've smoked weed off and on in my life. But at the time I wasn't at all. And I was quite, I didn't want to really, but they were like, yeah, I said, hey, are your friends going to be cool with me coming along? And they're going to be like, yeah, they'll be cool, as long as, depending on your bong performance. And I get there and they have this like gigantic bong that's like half my size. And, I hit, to be a good sport, I hit it. And immediately I'm like transported like deep inside my own head with all of these strange kids that I don't know who are playing like Call of Duty. And I was like, I have to get the fuck out of here. And I started walking away from their house, not knowing how to get back, not knowing anything about the community at all, not knowing how to get back to the place where I was staying. And somehow, miraculously, even though I was completely blazed out of my mind, I somehow like stumbled there like the mummy and made it back to the place so that I could pass out. But it was kind of a scary experience.
I heard of this movie. We did an episode I think in June, about Big Lebowski.
Oh yeah.
I bought the BFI book, and it kind of goes in depth to the references that are in the film, and also what the Coen brothers have mentioned. And they had said that Cutter and Bone was a influence on the casting of Jeff Bridges, and also just the kind of basically, yeah, just the casting of Jeff Bridges, of how he carries himself in that movie, and to sort of take that character and see what would happen to him if you just kind of put him in a different setting.
Yeah.
Walter has like cartoonish Cutter vibes, I feel like.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah, I did think of Lebowski a couple times when I was watching it. Jeff Bridges is really amazing in this movie, mostly because of just like how fucking beautiful he is.
Yeah.
And he reminds me of this friend. He reminds me of this friend I had when I was in college. And so the movie has I feel like it's about, when I watch it, the thing that rises to my, the theme, or what it's illustrating for me really is it illustrates the stark difference between somebody like a guy who's like just naturally attractive, tall, good looking, like really like, kind of like uniquely good looking, and like stumbles into, sex and women like without any effort at all. And a guy who's more of like a, kind of like a short trollish person, who has to get by on principles like, like honor and courage. And so you see the difference that and I have friends like, like the Jeff Bridges character, who are like naturally just, just like tall, handsome guys, who their purpose, their sense of purpose and honor and integrity is a little bit more diluted, just because they're getting through, they're just kind of stumbling through the world on grace a little bit, like Jeff Bridges is, versus Cutter, who's driven to do something to make I'd say make a mark on the world. I mean, it's not quite that, but he just is like he believes in something, and so this movie is really about Jeff Bridges' character Bone, which I feel like his sexuality, his raw sexuality, is underlined by his name, Richard Bone, Dick Bone, and so he's like all sex, and that's kind of like how he interacts with the world. And he's not a very principled person, and doesn't think about, he's presented with this really mysterious and tragic murder that seems like somebody's going to get away with it, and he's not particularly troubled by it. And it's something that this other character, who's not only like small and trollish, I'm not going to call John Hurt unattractive, but he also happens to be crippled and have one eye, and so he interacts with the world in a completely different way because of that, because of those natural gifts, that grace that's bestowed upon Bone. He doesn't have that, and so he sees the world in a different way and attacks it differently. And so we see him attacking it, and his friend finally coming around to doing something courageous and honorable.
Yeah, and there's a shot in the boat sales shop.
Yeah.
There's a shot of Georgie and Cutter when they were younger, and it's a picture of John Hurt, and he's handsome looking, and he's wearing a polo shirt, and he's on the boat, and it's a black and white photo. It's very quick. You kind of miss it. And I mean, they cut to the shot so that you see that, but it's hard to make him out because he's laying down. But that's kind of the thing, is that he was handsome as well, and so he's become this troll, and because he can't rely on his looks, because he can't rely on his body, he has this principle and this drive to keep pushing him. It's like what Bone says. He's like, he gets something in his head and he just fixates on it, and he just has to. And so I think it's like the only thing that he can do.
Yeah.
Is go at this thing.
Yeah. I mean, and you wonder what his, obviously it seems to be suggested at the beginning of the movie that he's just kind of like Cutter is kind of, in a meandering sort of place, and just kind of holding court at this bar, and like calling groups, like saying the N-word in front of black guys and getting away with it because he's a veteran.
Right.
Which, he probably wouldn't be able, his veteran status wouldn't save him now.
No.
But so this murder and his proximity to it, just through his kind of dopey, attractive buddy Richard Bone, his proximity to it gives him a purpose, which he sacrifices everything, including his long-suffering wife, who's like a codependent, but also it seems to me like they're saying that she's also an alcoholic.
Yeah, definitely.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, she's boozing right in the beginning.
Yeah, and so they really establish the characters well in this movie, very expertly, because the shot that the scene that begins the movie where Bone is sleeping with a married woman, getting some cash from her, and then kind of taking off unceremoniously, and then getting into his Aston Martin his like beat up Aston Martin Healy, and not tipping the valet. That gives us a lot of information about this character right from the start. And then we get a ton of information about Cutter right away too at the bar. and then we get more, and then they quickly establish, the female character, the wife of Cutter.
Mo.
Yeah, and what's the name of the guy who runs the boat? Georgie.
Georgie, yeah, George
Right?
Swanson.
And they're able, and they get him, and they establish him pretty quickly as well. So it's kind of expertly done. The stage is expertly set in the beginning of this movie.
Yeah, that's a good pickup. Yeah, because and I mean, especially when you compare it to movies today, it's like this movie establishes all of these characters really quickly so that you know exactly who they are, and they do that by those visual cues. I like when Bone comes out and there's already another blonde just waiting, just looking at him like, hey, what's up? And he's like, what's up?
Yeah, yes.
Yeah.
Just stuff like that. Like, go ahead.
Does Georgie is the first time we see him, correct me if I'm wrong, when he's on the horse in the parade?
No, it's when he brings Cutter home
right
the next morning from that night, the night that begins the movie.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
And he's basically like, hey, see you guys at the parade. And then the parade is really good in establishing this structuring motif of the horse, because you see them on horses and you don't know the significance of the horse. Right. But then, then you've got that polo scene. So you get that. So they're like, it's like, remember the horse motif, because that ultimately puts, that's the device through which Cutter achieves knighthood. Essentially, he becomes like a knight. He's like kind of like a knight in a way.
It's he makes the last ride.
Yeah, and that's a great moment. And that's a really touching ending, and a really amazing ending that you don't necessarily feel coming. I think because of the relentless cynicism of the movie. Yes. Which reminds me a lot of Chinatown, actually.
Yeah. I mean, it was very apt when you said that this was like a 70s movie, because it is very cynical, like those movies were. And I think the budget was at $3 million, and I think they pushed it to $5 million, and they made like $1 million from it. So you could tell, like, by 1981, people weren't really.
Yeah, they were ready for a little bit. They were ready for
Back to the Future.
Pretty Woman, which has another polo scene that has a great.
Oh yeah.
But what was that? Well, I don't know. I was gonna make something up, but I don't know what it was.
Trev, what do you got?
Well, I appreciate how well established the characters were. And I understand the dichotomy between the person who floats through life and doesn't really get outraged, and the person who seems to constantly be searching for outrage. And an interesting way that they, aside from trying to pick fights with people and obsessing over the idea that Cord was the murderer, the amount that Cutter drinks and how he drinks, I feel like is indicative of someone who's always looking for a struggle, something to fight against. He's drinking this white label junk straight out of the bottle the whole movie. He's just making his life so much more difficult. I think my favorite scene in the movie is where he drunkenly drives the car onto the neighbor's lawn. And
that's a great scene.
It's superb. If I had to pick one, I like so many scenes in this movie, but that's the one that stuck with me for some reason. And the way he switches it up when he knows, all right, I'm in the weeds now. I'm in the trenches. I've gotten myself into a bad situation. How do I get out of it? And he gets out of it. Mm-hmm. And I feel like he does stuff like that, and he looks for things like that because he wants to get out of it. He wants to fight against something.
Yeah,
and I appreciate the fact that there are a few principal characters and they're easy to remember because, like you said, Brendan, Bone likes to bone, Cutter likes to cut, Mo wants to drink Mo, Georgie's, I don't know, but And another thing I'll say, speaking of drinking, is that I felt like Mo is one of the most convincing female alcoholics in cinema history, and there aren't that many of them. And that usually is a male actor, and she was really, really good and tragic.
Yeah,
and
her
beautiful.
She was a great performance. It was very like subtle.
Yeah. She's an interesting leading lady because she gives you just kind of like she's pretty, but she's still gives you that kind of middle America lady vibe, that this this is the type of person that would not that would still be there, would still be kind of stuck in that the cycle with Cutter and Bone. And I was thinking about this, you said something interesting, Anthony, about the book functioning as a noir. And this movie really does. The movie really is a noir too, with characters, with that kind of fatalism that is characteristic of noir. And I was kind of trying to think of, well, who's the femme fatale, which that, of course, it being a new Hollywood. I mean, if we think of this movie as a new Hollywood film, the classical Hollywood neo-noir tropes are going to be a little bit subverted, even though it is a neo-noir. So I was kind of thinking about, well, who's the femme fatale in this case? And it's not Mo, because I mean, she's been there all along. It's the sister of the girl that's murdered, because whatever's driving her is not, her motives aren't. I mean, I guess I would pose the question, like, what's driving this lady, to kind of lead these two men into a confrontation with Cord, because to a certain extent she kind of does.
Yeah, it's funny that you it's good you brought that up, because I was going to get to it about her character of like, what does she want? I mean, her sister, like Mo says, like, your sister's just dead and buried 2 days ago and you're already like looking to cash in. And it's not really clear, because she drops off after a certain point.
Yeah.
Like, she doesn't return after I think after Bone tells him that he didn't deliver the letter.
Yeah.
That's the last time we see her, because he brings the gun out.
Mm-hmm.
And
yeah,
exactly. But she disappears then. She disappears then because that's when, because at that point, even though Bone didn't deliver the letter, he still has, by showing up at the Cord building, he has already brought fate. He's already sealed their fate. So she's performed her function as the femme fatale. She's delivered them to fate, and now that the wheels are in motion, because it's right after that when Bone leaves them and goes home to Mo, and and his house, Cutter's house, is burned down with her inside.
Do you think that did Cord kill Mo, or did she kill herself?
Oh, that's such a good question. I mean, I guess I always thought that it was Cord.
It's interesting, because I thought that she killed herself because she like begs him. She begs Bone to stay, and she's like crying. He's almost kind of like soft raping her, and she's crying, and she doesn't really want it, because she's a good girl, man. She's down for Cutter, and however fucked up it may be, she's just like, fuck it, we're gonna go all the way down to the drain together. And Bone likes to bone, so but then they're on the couch and she's like begging him, like, will you please just please stay with me tonight? And he's like, yeah, sure. And he fucking sneaks out. And as he sneaks out, we see her eyes open. And to me, I was like, yeah, maybe she did kill herself. I mean, to Cutter, he's like, you're such a fucking egomaniac, man. You think like, what, you give her the dick and then she's got to kill herself now because you didn't stay with her. I mean, I could see it going either way, and I like that it's ambiguous in a way.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
The reason that I bought
Yeah.
it, that I thought Cord did it, was just because I'm so convinced by Cutter's certainty.
Interesting.
You know, that
Yeah.
I'm basically taking his, at that point, I'm taking his perspective.
I almost sort of like, I don't like that at the end. Cord puts the glasses on, like he's like, "Yeah, I fucking did it, bro." It was like, okay. I mean, I would have liked it if it was just like over, more ambiguous, and he kills him,
Yeah.
But when he puts on the shades, like those are those your fucking like these are my like I kill little girls shades that I put on when I like
Yeah, because up until that point, there's two versions of the story.
right.
There's the Cutter version, or the like, I don't know if I call it the Bone version, but the more the simpler version.
What we know, what we actually know. And
right.
There is that interesting moment where they're sitting at the Georgie takes him to lunch. And I didn't catch this. One of the reviewers for like, I think it's like, whatever it was, but they said that you have to watch it a few times. It's true. But I didn't catch it that the wife, Cord, is sitting back there listening to the whole conversation the whole time.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
And when he talks about the motive, it was convincing. I was like, yeah, that makes sense. And she's listening to it the whole time. So it's like, what is her deal? Because at the end, she sort of sticks by her husband.
Yeah, it seems like it's trying to illustrate like how the relationships, like the familial relationship within a more like within the rich and powerful functions, where it's like she's going to protect the empire, and more than she's going to be concerned about a faithful or non murder, like she's not even worried that her husband is, it's just he gets his kicks, and then he has to kind of cover them up, protect himself.
Boys will be boys.
Yeah.
Sometimes he murders.
Which I don't know, I these like really dark takes on like how the rich and powerful function, they seem a little bit grandiose, they seem a little bit, they seem a little bit too perverse. But I still think I don't think, we necessarily, for the point to come across that they're trying to make about, the relationship between the rich and powerful and normal people, the exploiters and the exploited, we don't have to take the whole thing too serious. We don't have to take that aspect of it completely literally and seriously. Like, yeah, they're all, child rapist murderers,
right?
Who are going to be protected, who are going to be protected by law and order, and
your Cutters of the world believe that, I think, still.
Yeah.
And they're more influential than ever.
Well, Cutter again, he
Pizzagate types and stuff.
To Cutter, he's like, I know these people. I know who these people are because I came up in this. I know them. What's interesting about Bone is that in the book, right, he's got kids. He's got 2 kids and a wife, and they're in like Minnesota or Missouri or something, and he left them to go to Santa Barbara.
I see.
And so it's kind of this theme of him, when Cutter says in the movie where he's just like, yeah, do your famous Bone walk away. That's what you do. That's what you do. And and so, I think an adaptation, it's very hard to, what are you going to cut? What are you going to put in? Maybe a mention of it would have, but even a mention of it would have had to have gone deeper in terms of explanations and why he left and all that. But and the movie's, I think, 2 hours or close to it. So it's perfect length. Yeah. So
it functions fine without knowing necessarily where Bone came from. There is a line where he's like, when like Cutter's like, I was in Vietnam when you were getting laid in the Ivy League.
Right.
And so that, but that doesn't, that doesn't explain a whole hell of a lot. He certainly doesn't strike me as some kind of like, yeah, I guess maybe, a man of ease and comfort,
Yeah, a man of ease and comfort, and a man that I relate to in terms of the character, in terms of walking away.
Yeah.
Yeah, because it's easier. And I think that's what he's just trying to get to. Like, he goes sailing in the middle of all this. He's just like, I just want to go sailing. Just want to go in the boat.
Yeah.
It's just so much easier to cut it, and leave yourself emotionally severed from it, and that's the kind of juxtaposition. That's like what this friendship is all about, is Cutter trying to say, like, give a shit, man. Give a shit. You don't give a shit about anything. And Bone being like, yeah, I can't give a shit because,
well,
like, look at my fucking life. I have nothing. I am, I'm a whore, basically.
But what Cutter is up against and what he's proposing is it's not easy. It's not, it's big stuff. It is really actually, takes like legitimate courage. It's not, well, hey man, you got to like get a job, it's not apply for a job and rent an apartment.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
It's, and it's not even, take care of your family, don't, go back and take care of your family. It's confront a dangerous person, a dangerous and powerful person whose way, whose reach is, we can't even necessarily even comprehend what they know and don't, and what they can, what lengths they'll go to and things like that. So it is a little bit crazy.
It is, yeah. And to get somebody who doesn't give a shit really even about themselves,
yeah,
to give a shit about this young girl, this teenage girl who is killed, is murdered. Yeah. I mean, he does kill the guy at the end. So,
yeah,
but he does use Cutter's hand, which always stuck out to me.
That stuck out to me on the rewatching it. I was like, oh, he's grabbing his hand, and that was funny. And
so he's still like avoiding responsibility.
Yeah, hedging a little bit.
Yeah.
It's
another situation where it falls in his lap. He only witnessed the murder accidentally, and it almost seems accidental that he finally pulls the trigger because the hand with the gun crashes through the window and lands right in front of him.
Yeah. And I guess, when I think about it, whether Mo killed herself or not, I mean, she probably did, but Cutter, who is smart enough, because I do think that scene where he smashes into the neighbor's car and then gets out of it is a scene that reveals, because why else is it in the movie but to kind of reveal his cunning.
Yes.
And so he's a very intelligent person, and his intelligence recognizes that now that Mo has offed herself, I can exploit this guy's guilt over it and frame it as a murder, in order to further push him along to the ends that I think that, he should be a part of this crusade.
Manipulation. Yeah, because this happens a few times. This happens with Bone as well. When Georgie's like, hey man, just stay on here, I'll give you 5% of every sale, you just let me know what Cutter's up to. As soon as Georgie leaves, he calls up Cutter. He's like, hey man, I'm back in.
Yeah.
Remember?
Yes.
He's like, well, my wrists are already cut. He's like, well, tape him up. Like he's so this friendship is based on, I don't even know what this friendship is based on, but in terms of like, what is their mutual interest here? I mean, they just sort of use each other as to manipulate, because they don't like each other. I mean, it's very clear that Bone is not a big.
It seems like a love triangle, that maybe they're the reason that they're paired together is because of their mutual attraction to Mo.
Right.
And that's the only thing holding them together until, and even, and so what's holding them together then is her death, you know, now that she's dead, that's still what they have in common. And what's motivating Bone to just to keep going with Cutter.
Yeah, such a fucking complex story. It's a
Yeah.
great human condition story. Like,
Yeah.
oh, what was I gonna say about Bone Cutter? Oh, I have this story about John Hurd. I live on the Upper West Side in Manhattan, and I was talking to the actor Paul Herman. He's a neighbor of mine. He's been in all the Scorsese shit. He's been in a bunch of stuff. If you look, you could see him. I was talking to him the other night about this movie. He said, you know, John Hurd used to drink down the street, and when he was dating Melissa Leo, and they'd be outside beating the shit out of each other, and we'd have to break them up and separate them, and this would happen like 3 times a week. I thought that was a funny anecdote.
Oh,
About
sure.
John Hurd, because like you said, I only know him from Home Alone and from Sopranos.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
is Paul
He went
Herman
Cutter.
also in,
Sorry.
is Paul Herman also in The Sopranos?
Yeah. He
Yeah.
plays the guy. I think he gets his legs broken.
Beansy, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's my neighbor.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah, John Hurd seems like he was an extraordinarily talented guy.
Yeah, isn't that weird how they just fucking pigeonholed him as the dad?
Yeah, that's unfortunate.
I guess he was in other stuff too, but I can't really.
I mean, my understanding is they got him from the theater. So he must have done it from the theater. I mean, and I guess he was a New Yorker.
Right. They make good actors here sometimes, or they did.
Yeah.
They're just able to. I mean, that's a great combo, because Jeff Bridges is from Hollywood royalty.
Yeah.
And like you said, he's just such a fox. He's so like, what the fuck, dude? Fuck you.
Yeah.
He's so like feline lying. He's got the wavy hair and the mustache, and
He really doesn't have to do a lot in this.
he doesn't have to do anything. He's almost like spitting when he talks. You see him, he's like talking. He's just like his like lips stick together. There's so much like saliva just like dried up. Like,
yeah. He does have this weird facial like droopiness. That's like, yeah. But it's cool. It works, and yeah, you definitely do see the kind of like, you know, kind of, what's the word I'm looking for? Sleepwalking through existence that you then get later in The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
It
takes that trope to the extreme.
Yeah, which The Big Lebowski is a noir as well.
Right.
It's a noir, and so that this movie takes that. It's like that. The funny thing is that all noir mostly is Southern California.
Yeah.
It takes place, but noir, qua noir, is like in like a dark LA of shadows. But The Big Lebowski and this movie are true Southern California noirs, because they exist in the Southern California. They're more, they take Southern California people and place them in the noir context. You know, like if you think about like you know, something like, I don't know, you know, something with Bogart or whatever. You take like this like very East Coast you know, you take like East Coast figures, and then you put them in LA, and that's what noir is, you know, and they still feel like they're like they're Eastern stories set in a West Coast environment. You know, they're set in a West Coast environment. When you actually take a Big Lebowski, who, you know, he's like a product of Southern California in a way, in a way that, like, you know, the guy in Double, and, you know, Fred Neff or whatever, he could be anywhere. You know, he could be from anywhere. I don't know. That's my thesis on Southern California noir.
And Ellroy, his favorite. I just watched it after. Oh God, what was the guest that you guys had on? Will, is it Will?
Who, Walter Kern?
Walter Kern. Sorry, yeah, Walter Kern. I went and watched. You guys were talking about it, the first appearance that he had. You guys were talking about his favorite, Ellroy's favorite noir film,
Yeah.
which was it's my
Was it Out of the Past?
yeah. Is that the one with Robert Mitchum?
Yeah.
Yeah. So I went and watched that like right after listening, and it is. I think that is like the best noir, but it does have this like gangster element from the East.
Yeah.
But what I love about it is that the characters in it are very specific to the ethos of moving out west. This idea of escape and reinventing yourself as somebody else, and having your past catch up with you from back east.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's so when you're talking about like Lebowski and even like Cutter's Way, you have these characters that they're only found in the West. These people that have escaped something, that are lost, that they're trying to just keep the thing going, but there's no, that you can't go any further. It's almost like they want to keep going further west, but there's nothing to go to.
Yeah.
You've reached the limit. Yeah.
And that's I think strongly kind of that's strongly illustrated in this movie, because that parade, where kind of everything comes together, is about the founding of this place, where it was kind of like the furthest spot on the map, and the pioneering that went on was essentially just like, the only thing that we have left to do is just like exploit. Now all that's left is exploitation of the land and of the people. And this guy, this oil, I think he's an oil magnate, right? Cord is probably. In fact, I think it says like Cord Oil on the building or something like that.
Yeah.
So now he's literally, the only thing they can do now is dig into the ground. And there is that idea that, in noir, that you can't escape, that basically it's, as I was saying, like fatalistic, and that that we know that these characters are doomed in some way.
Is that a, when you talk about noir, are there like a certain set of like rules or principles that have to be sort of stuck to be a noir? Because I was wondering, because this is titled under a neo-noir on the Criterion channel, so I was just wondering what the principles or guidelines, or what those.
Well, I think that noir is easier to define in terms of like the time period in which it was made, which is like 1945 to 1960, and then some stylistic conventions that it follows, which is kind of like taking the German expressionist, like shadow heavy chiaroscuro style, and applying it to Hollywood cinema. And then I think that another convention is that you have is that basically you have that fatalistic element, and you add in, and usually that the instrument of fate is a woman, and it's the femme fatale. Those are the loose, but I don't feel like they're not rules, they're guidelines. They're guidelines for understanding noir, because then you can take a movie, another movie that would be considered a neo-noir, that we did a show about actually, and it's now on that Criterion neo-noir collection, The Last Seduction.
Yeah.
Which is an excellent movie by John Dahl, with Linda Fiorentino as basically, she is a femme fatale. But it's a movie that's in color, and noir was always in black and white. And so, it's not, it can't have the same stylistic conventions that classical noir has. So its noirishness has to come from other sources. And in that case, it has the femme fatale, and then the male characters are basically fated to die in their, in their pursuit of this woman.
Okay.
You have that a little bit in this movie because there's, Bridges' fate is a little bit sealed in his pursuit of Mo. It's what binds him to John Hurd. But John Hurd is seeking something. I don't know. I mean, is Mo a femme fatale? I don't know. I didn't think so. But
I don't think so.
but I feel like noir, it takes regular people. It takes regular people in pursuit of something that will ultimately lead to their demise.
Yeah, no, I think if anything, I mean, Bone is Mo's femme fatale
Yeah.
because he's kind of like irresistible. Why wouldn't she want this
Yeah.
beautiful guy who's trying to get her, and so she when she does take the bait or whatever, that seals her fate. She's dead after that. And that's like that's her crossing that moral boundary.
Yeah, that's interesting.
She gets punished for that.
Yes, that's true. Because yes, that's another thing that makes noir is that it's about people, it basically, they wanted to tell stories where people they cross moral boundaries. That was the idea. We've got plenty of hard-boiled fiction from the Great Depression, like books written by like Dashiell Hammett and James M. Cain, where people do morally transgressive things, but in Hollywood they can't get away with it because of the code, because of the Hays Code or whatever. So they have to be punished. And so that's kind of like why that happens, that has to happen in a noir. Because like if you take a book like Double Indemnity, I'm pretty sure that the lady, the woman who leads Walter Neff astray lives. And like in a movie like there's a movie Mildred Pierce, which is another James M. Cain novel. People get away with their crimes, but in the movie they die.
Right.
And so noir, by industrial necessity, has to punish its characters.
Yeah, and then it's imperative that the central protagonist has this like weird moral code where he can kind of break the rules, but he's indifferent to women, really, to their advances. Yeah. And he doesn't really get his hands dirty. He also like works for cheap. It's also this thing with money. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'll work for $25 a day plus expenses or something. It's never like he's never fleecing anybody,
Yeah.
And well, that's
well, it's interesting to see that at work in Cutter's Way, because you have John Hurd, who is indifferent to women. Mm-hmm. And maybe that's and that's unspoken in the movie. Like, what is his actual sexual function? You know what I mean? Like, does his dick work? Or is he, and maybe not. And so it's a contrast of what a man does when he's no longer motivated by sexuality. You do see him kind of teasing that the Anne Dusenberry character, the sister of the woman who's murdered. You kind of see him, but that could just be more of a.
That's kind of like I took that as him knowing like it wasn't going to happen. He was kind of
he's just fucking with her,
Yeah.
And so I feel like that contrast between this like raw sexual guy, Richard Bone, like they're saying like this guy has his sexuality, this other guy doesn't anymore.
Right.
And so what is he going to do? What motivates him? And at first he's got nothing. He's drinking, but then he gets his mission.
Right.
You got two options. You as a male, you either got to fight or you got to fuck. Those are your only two choices.
Yes.
And these two characters embody that. So if you don't have, if you for maybe he was traumatized in the war and just can't even think about it anymore, or maybe he's so wrapped up in his own mind, or a myriad of options, but he's consumed with the fight.
Yeah.
There's always a fight with him. He's trying to there's something he's struggling against.
Oh yeah,
And
and he's going to pick, and he goes out and picks the fights, like you were saying.
Yeah.
He goes
Yeah.
out to like make this war that he's got to constantly somehow win or conquer.
Yeah. Whereas Bone is the polar opposite.
Yeah.
He's a
Yeah.
coxman.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And everything, it has to be easy or else he'll abandon the project.
Yeah, that's funny. You said that in the book. He said he always gets this feeling in his stomach. So any job that he's ever had, any relationship or something, like he was with the family until he got that feeling in his stomach, a tightness, which made him have to leave. And that follows him throughout any job that he has as well. Like he can't hold a job because he gets this tightness in his stomach eventually, and he has to leave. And that's I related to that a lot as well in terms of jobs and stuff. I there's a certain point where it's like you're employed and you get kind of excited or something, and then there's just a certain point where you're just like, oh fuck, I'm just this.
You don't want to fight.
I just want to.
It becomes a struggle. Yeah. And short of that, just say fuck it.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's go bowling.
But and I think the movie's saying like you can't always do that.
Yeah, I think I agree.
Yeah, there are circumstances that you will encounter in life that demand courage.
You can't fuck your way out of this, Dick Bone.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That doesn't always work.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas fighting, it might always work. I don't know. It's tough. It's a tough road, though. It's a hard scrabble way.
Yeah.
And the fact that this is set in Santa Barbara, now that I'm thinking about it more, because I view Santa Barbara as the easiest peasiest place in maybe the United States, which might be one of the easiest peasiest countries. No, there's probably somewhere in Europe, but it to me, it embodies leisure and privilege and good weather. I think that there's actually a study that it has like the best weather possible. You're pinned in between, they call it the California Riviera, that little part that goes east to west on the coast that Santa Barbara's on. And you're between this beautiful ocean that where you cull the best seafood on the West Coast out of, and wine country just behind the mountains in like Santa Maria and such. It's a blessed place and a place of extraordinary privilege. But before, in like the middle of the 20th century, it was just another part of California. The way I often like to think about it is embodied in the casual breakfast restaurant chain Sambo's. Not the most pleasant word, I know, but it started in Santa Barbara, California, and it was basically like IHOP of the 50s. It was called Sambo's, and their mascot was an actual cartoonish portrayal of like a jungle African Sambo, and that was on all the menus, kids and adult menus. It was on all the wallpaper, and this grew from Santa Barbara to become a pancake house from coast to coast with hundreds of locations. And as people's taste for racist tropes declined, so did the restaurant's success. And now it might have closed, but last I heard, there was only one location left, and it's the original location in Santa Barbara.
That place still exists?
Yeah, in Santa Barbara.
That's
which is
wild.
amazing because it's also, Santa Barbara is very typically left coast,
Left coast.
but left coast, like politically left wing.
Oh, yeah.
But it's like
Liberals.
a Californian attitude. Yeah, the specific brand. And so you have this probably the most, although it seems like it was in a sense innocent, like they weren't malicious, but they were doing something that is considered revolting and repugnant today. That this restaurant emerged from Santa Barbara, spread throughout the country, and now it exists again only in Santa Barbara, unless it's closed. Maybe it has, I don't know. So I think this is the morality of Santa Barbara. It's to me, it typifies the California that was once all pioneers and became a place for rejects and adventurers and open-minded people, but also, has always, or at least through most of the 20th century, been a very exclusive place. And a place where some people are mocked and not allowed. And I think that's that when you think about like the villainous character Cord, it's someone who everyone likes, but a lot of people resent.
Yeah. Well, what do you think? We got any final thoughts?
Well, the only other movie I can think of that takes place remotely in Santa Barbara is Sideways, which takes place in the Santa Ynez wine country outside of Santa Barbara.
Movie. Great
Yeah,
movie.
I think so too.
We were talking about doing that movie in a future episode. It's kind of a no-brainer.
That's a great
I love
one.
that movie.
Yeah. So, well, what do you think, guys? Are we done? Can we keep going?
I have one quick question. Brendan, while you're here, I'd like to know what gas station chain you think serves the best coffee in these United States.
Oh, that's a good question. I mean, I have a fondness for Quick Trip.
Where's that? No. What part?
They're all over. They're all over Arizona for sure. And I had them in I lived in St. Louis, Missouri. They were there too.
I don't think I've ever been to Quick Trip.
Yeah, man. It's full, Quick Trip is like quite the experience. Like the employees are like ridiculously efficient. They're all about like ringing up like 3 people at once, and they like, you walk in and they're like, welcome to Quick Trip. Like even like they'll be in the middle of a conversation with you, and then somebody will come in, they got to hit that note, and then they're like, but they got pretty good coffee, in my opinion. The Circle K coffee is not bad. One thing I'll say, gas station coffee, the nice thing about it is you kind of know what to expect. Right. You're not going to get something that's like radically different for the most part. Right.
Like a mild kind of thing.
But I used to drink. I don't drink anymore because I had to give it up.
Why?
Well, because I am an alcoholic.
Okay. Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah. And it's interesting. What you were saying was, I always felt like, I always thought of it as like starting the day from behind. Was basically like what you were saying, Trevor, about like him, basically creating difficulties for himself. Starting the day after having gotten smashed again was kind of like putting life on hard mode, and And so I relate to that in this movie. So you kind of see, you see him, taking sips from a pint bottle. I like to drink. I would get a pint of this Canadian whiskey called Black Velvet.
Oh yeah, I know
That
that
was my
stuff.
drink of choice. Get Black Velvet in a 32-ounce thing of Miller High Life.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I liked Black Velvet a lot. And then there's this cheap Scotch called House of Stewart, which
I don't think I've ever had that.
gives you bad dreams.
Whoa.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's an interesting thing because I don't know when you cross the point into being an alcoholic.
Mhm.
I've done a lot of drugs that I was able to get out of. Like
Mhm.
I was able to kind of quit, and most anything I can kind of, if I just stay with it for about 72 hours, I won't go back to it if I don't want to.
Yeah.
I know that some people can't, but I don't like to day drink, but I do more and more as I'm getting older. I do like to drink every night.
Yeah.
I like to drink until I'm can get knocked out. So I don't know, and then we're doing this show, and I love doing the show, and I was thinking like it was funny. I was thinking like the end of the show would be like Trevor on dialysis and me going into rehab or something. But like, I don't know what the threshold is in terms of like when you have to pull back, because booze is, pot. It's like if you're coughing all the time and you're stoned from the morning till the night, okay, there's a problem, because you're not functioning. No matter how much you think you are, you're not functioning like you should. You're slowed down, and you can kind of tell. With booze, it's like, well, as long as you drink past 5, you can drink as much as you want, and you can go and get more, and it's right down the street, and you just buy it, and it's available everywhere, and so it's never really clear, I guess, until it's too late, and then you're like, oh, I'm pissing my pants, and I'm just sitting in the chair here.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I don't know. For me, it was just kind of a thing where it was like it stopped working to a certain extent. Like the pain outweighed the pleasure.
Okay.
It was like I'm not doing what I want to be doing while I've got this in my life. I think the reason I did it was to kind of mask in my own mind some of the ambitions that I had for myself that I was afraid of pursuing. So as long as I was drinking, I could just kind of forget about that and remain in that cycle of like getting hammered every night. And then once I stopped drinking, there's an anxiety that arises where it's like, well, what do I want to do? And now I got to do it and answer the call, and it's going to be hard. But but I've added a lot of shit to my life since I stopped drinking, But I mean, it's different for everybody. I mean, it's easy to say this guy's got a problem if he's like going to jail for a DUI, for this, because he's had his 3rd, 4th DUI. But for somebody who's doing the things that they want to do and, drinking, and it's pleasurable for them, they shouldn't be, I don't think it's something that they should be neurotic about and be like, oh, I drank a 6-pack of IPAs again. I shouldn't do that. I think the question would be, well, why shouldn't you do that? Like, do you feel bad? Or is it preventing you from doing something you want to do? If not, then who would I be really to say, oh yeah, that guy's got a problem,
Yeah, there's a point where the drinking will obstruct any sort of productivity.
Mhm.
You can have a little bit of buzz going on. I can write a script. I can bang one out by a good 5-minute short film or something. That's actually kind of worked. I'll smoke a little bit, or I'll drink, and I'll pop one out. And but there's a certain point where you go past and you're like, well, I can't do anything now. Like I can just sit here and listen to music or put a movie on, and now we're just drinking, we're coasting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Yeah. It's that thing
Yeah.
that anxiety you're talking about is actually something that I love. It's actually like that feeling of, you know, like when you're in love with somebody
Yeah.
and you can't stop thinking about them, and you can't drink, you know what I mean? Like that, you can't drink, you can't smoke, you can't really do anything.
Yeah.
Like with substances to get this, because if you drink, you're just going to keep thinking about it. You smoke, you're going to keep thinking. Instead, you got to start creating.
Yeah.
Use that energy to that sort of obsessive thing, because you use that to springboard you into something else, and that's a good feeling.
Yeah.
It's just getting there,
Yeah.
and having that crutch of like, well, it's 9 o'clock, so I just got home from work. I guess I just get fucked up. And for me, when I get home from work, I just want to get fucked up.
Yeah.
I have this pull to just. That was beautiful. The cat, like it created this beautiful, like, whoa, like Jesus just landed in your room. It's like,
Well, I did a study on my own life, and I quit for a while, and I determined that I'm a piece of shit either way.
yeah, but you got a new love in your life. Don't you want to save your liver for her?
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. Yeah,
are you on some leaving Las Vegas trip? Is she going to give you like because she going to give you like a flask for your birthday or something? Just be like, well, I guess this is what you
lonely teardrops. I always thought about doing that movie. We talked about it, but it's too depressing.
Oh, I watched it last night.
You can't. Oh, you did?
It's the most romantic movie ever made. It's
pretty sweet, right? Surprisingly.
I saw the first part, and where he's got like the DTs or whatever.
Yeah.
You know what? That's another thing is I started having withdrawals, and they were really scary.
Oh yeah. That is scary.
So were you drinking? Were you drinking every night?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And every day.
And then I did start day drinking. And it scared, and then I started having withdrawals, and that really scared me.
Yeah.
Really frightening stuff. Because you feel really out of control, like something bad is really bad. They call it the fear.
Oh.
And it feels like something really, really awful is going to happen, like you're going to die.
Were you by yourself during this time?
Yes, I was.
And you're by yourself now? You live by yourself?
I do, yeah.
And I can see that. I can see that for me too. I fear that as well. I've always feared that. I fear being by myself because what do you do? What do you do?
Yeah.
When it gets late, when it gets early, you got nothing, nowhere to go, nothing to do. It's your day off or whatever it is. It's like, I definitely, having a stepson or a dog and a cat, and all that stuff.
Yeah.
Like great sort of balancing to be like, you can't do that shit here. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you can't fuck up here like that. Cause then you're entering into like piece of shit territory. And as much as you think you're a piece of shit, Trevor, you can go further. You know what I mean?
Well,
of course.
I drank, I more or less drank myself out of a long-term relationship. Like I was with somebody and I was drinking, and they basically said like, I'm sorry, like it wouldn't have been fun for the other person. I can tell you that.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Makes sense.
So, yeah.
Not to bring the mood down. I mean, I
like it. I like that. No, this is where it should go. This is exactly where it should be. No, it's great. Cause we don't ever touch on this.
Yeah.
But that's why, you bring a professional like you here, because you fucking bring it in different places. You know what I mean? You bring the juice.
So Trevor, you've got a new lady in your life.
Yeah, I do. I'm in love with someone.
That's beautiful.
It feels amazing. It's like the best drug.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
What,
Very happy.
Brendan, do you have someone special in your life?
I do not. No, so I should never mention this, but I can't help but bring it up constantly. I haven't had sex in 5 years. I've seen somebody a little bit, here in town, but it's not really headed in like a long-term direction or anything like that. I've been a little lovelorn. I had something that seemed promising, but I got my heart broken not too long ago. So that was pretty painful. So right now I'm back in thinking kind of like, I'm going to focus on my art and my and my projects, and the energy that I create from just that, the focusing on that will draw people. And it's already drawn people, including women, into my life after a period of not having any women in my life for many, for like 4 years.
Did you choose to be celibate?
No, that's not a choice. I mean, some of that time was spent, just kind of by myself drinking a lot. So that was like, I wasn't in a position to go out and meet people, and very, bloated, bloated and self, and not a lot of self-respect. Now
Okay. Yeah.
I'm in a good place, and because of the shows that I do, I meet a lot of people across the country. I travel a lot, meet new people, and so that's been really good.
Well, how long have you been sober,
buddy.
for?
I have been sober since like around this time last year.
Okay.
June last year.
Oh, all right. Okay, so this is a somewhat recent.
Yes.
Somewhat recent evolution.
Yeah.
And so that 5 years that you were celibate, that was sort of involuntary.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
I mean, if I'd had it my way, I've been fucking every night,
Yeah, but you didn't go out or anything like that.
I wasn't going out or anything like that. Because the other thing is that when I left my relationship that I'd been in for a long time, I moved here to Arizona.
How long were you in that relationship?
I was in that from, let's see here, for like almost 6 years.
Yeah, that's a long time.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
so when I got out of that, I didn't have a job. I'd gotten to grad school, and but I hadn't yet found work. And so I moved back in with my folks. I was 30 years old. And I moved back in with my folks, and they live out in rural Arizona. So that made it very difficult. And then I found a job here in Phoenix, and I don't know anybody. And so, it was just kind of a solitary life. I met people at work, but again, I didn't have a lot of self-respect, so it I didn't feel the light shining in me to spread to other people. You know what I mean? Like, I didn't feel like I want to bring people into my sphere.
I see. And then when did you start creative writing?
Well, back in, that basically started this year in 2021. I mean, I had been, I had aspired to be kind of a writer when I was in high school, and I'd done a little bit of screenwriting when I was in college studying film. And then I kind of left that behind, but I'd been writing music. I was a musician, and bands. And then I gave up all creative aspirations kind of as an exchange, kind of like, I'm just going to just give all of that up just to be a normal guy and like just like have a normal life. But that wasn't very satisfying. And then this year, I was approached by, a producer to come up with some idea for a podcast. And then that's what led me to think that I wanted to do a scripted show. And that's when I started writing The Isolation Chamber. And that was like the floodgates opened after that.
What I like about what I really like about Isolation Chamber is that it's like 25 to 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Digestible episodes. You could put them on when you're getting ready to go to bed, or you're settling down, or you're cooking dinner or something, and you can just kind of pop the headphones in. And I really admire what you're doing, because you're taking the medium and doing something like, it's almost like, it reminds me of those old radio plays, those old radio shows, but it's got this mood to it, this kind of, it's I mean, it gets thrown around a lot, but that kind of Lynchian type of, you don't know where we're going here.
Yeah.
And I like the mysteriousness of it, but but the creativity that goes on behind it. You're a good writer. I really enjoy your scripts. When you send them to me, it's like I don't even have to do any work, because the characters are all kind of written out there. It's really fleshed out, and I think that that it's great that you're doing that. And that you're able to now let that thing come out, because you're definitely a voice that should be heard, man. It's great. It's good. It's good. And I think that struggle you were going through, it led to that, and that's the kind of cool part of it. It's like all that pain, all that suffering, all that shit, you can get over it. You just have to fucking get over the hill. Yeah. And that's the hardest part, especially when you're near the top of it. Cause it's like, that's when it's the hardest, that's when everything's fucking firing, and you're like, you just gotta push yourself. And it's almost like everything in life, for me anyway, there's always this constant, like that Cutter shit, like there's always this battle, and it's just trying to get over. I know that if I get over the hill, that things are going to be easy. It's going to just be downhill. It's going to be great. We're going to be rolling. But I got to get over that thing first, and I can get lost in that. And I mean, I've been depressed. I have had like clinical depression and all that shit, where you feel like you're in a hole that's like right above your head. Yeah. And it's just right out of arm's reach, so you can't get yourself out. Yeah. And that's the part that I struggle with. That's the part that I struggle with.
I think that I think if you have a lot of creative power, that you're going to experience a lot of resistance. You're going to experience a lot of resistance because it's so powerful that you're afraid of it a little bit.
Yeah, you're right.
And I think I was afraid of it for a long time. And then I just started embracing it, and it takes me places that I didn't know existed. And when you read some of that stuff or when you hear some of that stuff in the isolation chamber, when it came out onto the page, I was just like, where is this coming from? And that's a really special thing. But the resistance is so strong, I think.
Yeah.
But I saw a little bit of the Strange City. Was that what it was called?
Yeah.
And it actually reminded me of the isolation chamber, because you had like this character who something kind of supernatural happens to them in a moment of stasis. And so that was, it resonated with me, and that kind of like mystical, supernatural, ancient forces. And I'm really drawn to kind of like, when I start to think about start creating kind of like a mythology or a mythos, then I start engaging with like just ideas that I had for like mythical forces and things like that. And I want to see what outcome I want to see. It's discovery, right? What's in there?
Yes. Yes.
But
and yeah.
As I've made the isolation chamber, weird shit has happened to me. That a feedback loop exists now, where it's like, the more I create it, the more stuff happens to me that then I can work into it. Relationships that I've generated with people that hear the show, that come into my life. And I've had that where people not like people that even are on Twitter, but just like people who heard the show. And they're like, hey, I heard your show, I want to meet you. And then you meet them and they turn out to be insane. And then,
no.
Yeah. Which is good though.
It is good because you can use it.
Yeah.
And that's the, when I did Strange City, the third episode is Trevor wrote, and I sort of tried to adapt, but that first episode and the second episode were what happened after I broke my back, and after I broke my back, I fell headfirst onto the subway tracks in New York. I got this gnarly scar on the side of my head.
Oh,
and
gee.
and it was all in the same day. So it was this like thing of like I almost died twice in one day. And I went through, it's been 7 years, and it's been just years and years of physical therapy and just trying to, that led into the clinical depression because my back would just be bad and there was nothing I could do about it. And I'd be having a really great day, really great exercising, feeling great. And then something would happen with my back and I was out for 2 weeks. And that Strange City came out of that feeling of being stuck in bed, lying in the fetal position because I couldn't lay on my back. I couldn't lay certain ways because my back would just hurt, and not being able to pursue whether it was acting or whatever it was. And so what I'm saying is like what came out of me is the same thing that you're talking about that came out of you, which was this thing that was lying in there, and it had something to do with mythology, it had something to do with supernatural, it had something to do with that's why the whistle is this like tribal whistle, because it was like this thing that was really deep down. And, I spent too much money on it. I basically spent all of my settlement on it. And it won some awards. I'm proud of it. I wish I would have done it a little just smarter, just to sort of like not spend so much money and just save some of that for a rainy day. But
so how did you break your back?
So I was riding my bike. I got hit by a car,
uh-huh.
and they rear-ended me going about 40 miles an hour. They hit a corner just going super fast. These young kids, they were stoned in their uncle's car, and this rear-ended me on my bike. My bike flipped out, and I have a curvature of my spine. I had scoliosis as a child, so I have like a curved back. Mm-hmm. When I landed, it was right on the curvature. So it was a compression fracture that shrank me about an inch. I used to be like, I used to be like almost 5'11". Now I'm closer to like 5'10", 5'9".
Wow.
And,
that's incredible.
But it was from that thing that, it's one of those things where you're like, where you hear about in some Entertainment Tonight story of like, this changed my life. And I'd be sitting there laying in bed and being like, how the fuck I don't feel changed. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like I'm not, because then afterward, like literally right after I got out of the hospital, my phone didn't work. So I couldn't call my girlfriend at times, my wife now. I couldn't call her. I had no money on my Metro card to take the train up. I had one swipe. I had no money personally because I'm a fucking broke actor. And so I get down to the subway and I swipe, and my blood pressure drops because they gave me all these Percocets so they could push me out of there. They couldn't tell that I had a broken back.
Yeah, I know how they do that.
Yeah, and I stood up when they said the train was coming, and I just blacked out. And I woke up and I thought that I was in bed, like a white duvet, like it was morning, white walls, white pillows, and I was just like stretching out, and I heard all these people screaming, and I open up my eyes, and there's people screaming, and they're trying, get up, and I go to the platform edge, and I can't lift my leg because my back, and I see the lights coming from the subway. They're coming, like they're rounding. And I scream and I said, I can't get up. And these three super bros came over and just like grabbed my arms and dragged me out of there.
Yeah.
And I had the hospital bracelet on. So they thought that I was crazy.
Yeah.
So nobody like went to see if I was okay. I just kind of sat on a bench until the hospital, till the ambulance came and took me to Bellevue, which is like the crazy people hospital.
Right.
And then they left me there for about 3 hours by myself. And I started cleaning my own wounds. I had broken from that fall. I had broken my knuckle, boxer's fracture, and then I had the sinus fracture and had like whiplash. But they just left me in all the dirt and mud and shit. So I was cleaning it out like I was like Die Hard or some shit, just like,
Yeah.
But it was, but I don't know if you've ever been through any sort of trauma like that. And some people, they come out of it and they're talking about like, I saw Jesus, or I had this reawakening and I got my life back on track and I did all of these things. For me, it was just like, at the end of the day or whatever, I'm laying in the room like nothing. There was nothing. There was bed sheets. There was a duvet, and that was it. You know what I mean? Like I don't feel like anything. I'm waiting for it.
Yeah.
I'm waiting for that thing that's supposed to come, and it doesn't. It's just more like, no, this is just something that happened. It's like,
yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's crazy though. Wow. Well, I'm glad that you lived.
Yeah, me too.
I'm glad that you survived that.
E3.
That's so frightening, really.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man. Wow. Well, yeah, no, well, I don't know what to tell you about that. I don't know what to tell you about that.
But
it's a grind. Life's a fucking grind, man.
Yeah, man.
Grind. You gotta fight. And I mean, there's a little bit of knowing when to let go and let the Tao or the God or whatever take care of some shit. But that's tricky.
Yeah.
It's tricky.
Yeah. Well, like, do you ever think about moving out of Phoenix?
Oh yeah, all the time.
Where do you think you'd want to go?
Well, I mean, like my favorite place is New Orleans.
Oh.
And I think that it would
Great
be like
city.
there'd be a lot of energy, like I'd be like getting a lot of ideas and stuff while I was there. But I'd probably stay in Phoenix just because my family is here in Arizona now. And I'm an insurance adjuster. I pay people when they get hit by the stoned kids.
Uh-huh.
That's my job. I don't know what else I could really do to make a living. I would love for there to be a wealthy benefactor to show up and be like, I think you're a genius and you should write on my dime. And I would. Now I would. 10 years ago, I would not know how to even get started.
Right.
Now I don't have any problem with being like, okay, here's the story I want to tell. I'll grind it out and get it into shape.
Yeah.
And working on the isolation chamber, I realized that if a company before I would be like, wow, if they asked me to like run my own TV show or whatever, I'd be like, well, I don't know how to do that. I don't know how to do that. But if somebody came to me now and said, well, like if Amazon or HBO or something was like, yeah, we'll give you your own show, I would be like, well, I'll figure it out. I can do it. I at least know how to write the story. I could write 10 episodes of a show, no problem. Because I've been writing this show one episode at a time. I committed myself to 13 without knowing where anything was going to go, what direction it was going to take. And it's not tight. It's not like, it's not the fucking Sopranos, but I did it by myself, without any,
And it's your first time.
And it's my first time. So I feel confident that I could take on whatever. It's given me a lot of confidence and courage.
And you're only going to get better. You know what I mean? Like you're going to keep advancing. And that feeling of from being on set on this like TV show, all you have to do, I'm watching the director who's a complete like pussy hound and he's just managing chaos on the side of like trying to get pussy.
Wow.
And most of the time though, it's just like, okay, people, I mean, you have people there. They're doing everything that you need them to do.
Yeah.
So, like in terms of directing, you know, if that landed in your lap, yeah,
Yeah.
you'd be no problem with it because it's just managing chaos. If you
Yeah.
can manage chaos, and from my stuff when I did the web series, it was the same thing. It was like what I noticed is like doesn't matter if the crew is 50 or the crew is 5, it's still just managing chaos
Yeah.
and going like, all right, let's see what the fuck happens. You know, I mean, he's on a TV show, so it's a little more strict,
Yeah.
but he also has script, you know, supervisors.
Yeah.
And there's produce, and he is the main producer as well. So it's like he's the director, the producer. Tom Selleck is the big guy. Oh shit! And so I'm not supposed to say that, but
There it is. There it is.
I meant
You were so careful last time.
I won't bring him up.
I meant Tom Sizemore. Tom Sizemore is the big guy.
Talk about managing chaos. Then.
Yeah.
Does the director get pussy?
I think he gets puss. Yeah.
Nice, man. Yeah.
But he ain't slick with it, you know.
He just shoots. Shoot.
He's just shooting his shot. Like,
yeah.
Like right on set. What are you laughing at, Trevor? What?
The whole situation.
The whole situation. I know. I just doxed my. But no one's gonna get this far in. It's okay. My mom might.
Yeah,
watch.
I mean, yeah.
Well, you might. I mean, I'll make him. I'll make him listen. I'll make him listen.
You're gonna show it to
him.
The
whole thing, or don't bother.
Yeah, it'll be a big table full of director Pussyhound and Tom Cruise. Oh, whoops. And all the others, and that they're going to be listening to this.
Yeah. No, it's fine. It's fine. What I really love though is that we actually got into some deep shit afterwards. I like that.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, because you know, like what the Ellroy Boys do, what Low Res does, I love to listen to. I enjoy. But I don't want to try to emulate that because like just the last episode you guys did David Fincher's Zodiac.
Yeah.
Which was like this beautiful meditative episode that was different from and maybe it's just me, but it was different from the rest of the episodes where it was like meditative. Like you guys were like kind of quiet, not like not talkative, but quiet in terms of the energy. Sometimes like you'll have Howling Mutant on or
yeah,
you'll have the Grinch on, right? The Byronic Grinch or something. So there's this funny kind of back and forth, but it was just you three dudes, and it was like, and when Sam kind of went off on this monologue that was very like subdued and like focused, and Blauergeist as well, and then you guys, it was just a very like nice, beautiful, quiet, descriptive episode that was like, yeah, I like it was really meditative in that sense of like kind of calming. But so for me, what I'd like to do here is get into more of what you kind of took us into, which is more of like making it personal and getting into some side stuff. And yeah, we could talk about the movie. It's what I like about Low Res is they'll talk about the movie, then they just kind of go off on wherever it goes.
Yeah.
And I'd like to make the journey more personal and talk about the journeys that, you know, just our own sort of stories.
Yeah.
Stories.
I like that too. And thank you for saying that about the show. But I'm an exhibitionist, you know, I put it all out there. I mean, and you can see that kind of in some of the Isolation Chamber. But yeah, I bring the personal into it a lot. And that's kind of what that's what I'm interested in as well is hearing about people and their stories and things like that.
Yeah, it's the most important part of writing is writing what you know.
Yes.
And being able to receive someone's story as well.
Yes.
And viewing it as a story. Sometimes people just,
for sure,
you just listen to people and you're just like, oh. But if you view people as they're just telling their story, I was talking about this earlier. I was like, nobody tells jokes anymore. There used to be just people you'd hang out with that would just, and I'm not talking about us because we're too young for this shit. I'm talking about old timers, like
Yes.
parent stuff, where you would just hang out and they would just start rapping about jokes. They would just have all these jokes and
Yeah.
dirty jokes, racist jokes, like just and it's a complete lost art that nobody does anymore.
Yeah.
And it's really fucking tragic, especially people our age. We're like millennials or whatever, geriatric millennials, if you will.
Yes.
And we don't do it because it's like, well, that's not cool.
Yeah.
But then I heard some after talking about it. We were having a back and forth here at the house here, and I was hearing these like racist jokes and these other. I was like, these are good jokes. Like, there's no hate behind them. They're just funny when you got nothing to do and you're just hanging out. They're just funny to bring up, and it's a completely lost kind of. It's not. I don't want to say an art form, but it's a lost kind of skill that nobody has.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, okay. So in that case, I got a joke to tell you.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay, this is one that. So speaking of joke tellers, my dad. So I grew up in Nebraska, but my family and even me, I was born in Northern California, and my parents both grew up in Northern California, and we just lived in Nebraska purely because my dad's job took us there.
What part
Lincoln, Nebraska.
Oh,
of Northern California?
Oh, my dad's from San Jose, and my mom's from Santa Rosa.
Gotcha.
And I was born in Sacramento. So so every summer, my dad's dad and his two brothers and this family friend named John Tierney, who was my grandfather was an educator and a principal. And this family friend was the PE teacher. He was my dad's PE teacher. And he was just like a super old school guy who was like unfiltered and racist and like said whatever. And he told this joke that I'll never forget. I thought it was the funniest joke. He was telling a story about these nuns that were basically they had to they had to basically do a bunch of DIY projects at the convent because the convent needed refurbishing. So the three nuns are in the are in the convent, and they're redoing the floors, and they're redoing the windows, and they're doing all kinds of redecoration, and it's hotter than hell in there. And so one of the sisters is like, hey, it's just us gals, and it's hotter than fucking hell in the convent. Like, I think it's just us gals, we could take off our habits, we could take off our clothes. And the nuns all kind of look at each other and are like, yeah, I'm getting kind of hot in here, and it's just us gals, we all live together anyway. I agree, let's take off our habits, and we'll work basically naked. And so they're working, and then all of a sudden they hear a knock at the door, and they're like, oh shit, who is it? Because they're nude, and they're like, who's there, please? And they hear from beyond the door, blind guy. And they're like, oh, okay, cool, we can let him in. And then he comes in and he looks at the sister and he goes, nice tits, where do you want the blinds?
Classic. That is like my favorite kind of joke.
Yeah. Okay. There was this handicapped girl, and she's sitting on the dock by herself, and she's crying. And a guy walks over, and he was fishing, and he sees that she's crying. He puts his pole down. He comes over and he says, little girl, why are you crying? She says, I've never been embraced. He says, oh, well, here. And he embraces her and he hugs her. And she starts crying again. He says, well, why are you still crying? She says, I've never been kissed. He says, oh. He gives her a kiss. She starts crying again. He says, well, why are you crying now? And she looks up at him. She says, I've never been fucked. And so he picks her up and he throws her into the water. And he says, there, Now you're fucked.
That's a-
What a crazy little girl.
Yeah, what is she doing?
What a witch.
yeah, she was asking for it.
For sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I think that was the correct response on his part.
yeah, it's the only answer, you know?
Yeah. He's the
It
good
wouldn't
guy.
have been.
Yeah.
It wouldn't have been good
That's
sex. That's for sure.
It wouldn't have been good. No, he would have
No,
got in trouble
there's-
too.
There would have
Yeah.
been repercussions.
Yeah, that would have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah.
Yeah. Whereas now she's at the bottom of the sea.
Yeah.
Well, you got one, Trevor?
Sure. I learned this one recently, and I thought it was pretty funny. It's one of my favorite genres, a blonde joke. So it also involves a blind man. A popular character in these sorts of humorous situations. So a blind man goes into a lesbian bar, and he walks over and gets a drink, and he can sense that there's someone next to him, and he says, "Hey," he doesn't know it's a lesbian bar at this point, and he says, "Hey, you want to hear a great blonde joke?" And it's a blonde woman that he says this to, and she says, "Mister, I'm blonde. The bartender who just served you that drink is a blonde physical fitness instructor. The bouncer is blonde, and she knows Krav Maga, the Israeli art of neutralization. The woman playing pool over there, she's 6'3", and she's blonde, and she has studied Muay Thai kickboxing. And my friend Sidra over there, she's blonde, and she has a purple belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So let me ask you, mister, I'm going to only give you another chance because I know you're blind. Do you still want to tell this blonde joke? And he says, no, I don't want to have to explain it 5 times.
Yes.
Nice.
Yes.
I thought he was going to say was, okay, never mind, but I've got a lesbian joke that I want to tell.
Yeah. Did you hear the one about the 2 lesbians at the steakhouse?
No.
No.
Oh, that's him. Oh, okay. Oh, yeah.
You set it up like that.
I wish
that
I
was,
had a
that was a
joke,
setup
yeah.
right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, sorry.
The lesbian duct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right.
All right.
All right.
Well,
Good. That was a good way to end it, I think.
I think that was a good way to end it. Yeah, I think you're right. Brendan, thank you so much.
Yeah.
Appreciate
Spending
you, man.
time with us. Anytime you want to come back, you're welcome to. Any
Yeah,
kind of movie, anything you got on your mind.
Hell yeah.
This was a blast. I had a great time.
I had a
Cool.
great time too. I'm sure Trevor did as well.
Great to
Hell
meet
yeah.
you, Trevor.
Great to meet you too, man.
And
Great
check out the Ellroy Boys and check out the Isolation Chamber. This is a I am grateful and honored enough to be able to have participated in this, and I maybe I might continue to. I'm in 2 episodes so far, but you got to listen to it from the beginning. This is a story. It is a narrative. It's like an audiobook, and it's for free, and it's on Apple Podcasts. It's on SoundCloud. It's on Spotify as well.
Yes, correct.
It's on Spotify, Apple, SoundCloud. Please check it out, and check out the Ellroy Boys as well if you haven't already. One of the best podcasts out there. They're great guys. Brendan, thank you so much. Trevor, why don't you give us some final words?
Oh, gee. I guess at the end of the day, you're either a cutter, a bone. Let's start there. Someone who is human to a fault, or a cutter, someone who exposes that. And I personally, I'm a mo, just fucking drunk all the time, so I stay out of it. But I don't really know what the answer is.